In the opening sequence of the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock classic Psycho, the effect where texts are being split up is heavily used as a creative editing technique. And in this video, we're going to look at how to create a similar effect in DaVinci Resolve. So let's get started. So I have this white background here that will help us with the demonstration. And the first thing we're going to do is just bring this video into Fusion, and once we're on the Fusion page, we're going to bring the text node into the panel, make sure that it's connected. And then the next thing we can do is just pretty much type in the text. I'm also going to change the color as well as the size so that it's more visible to us. And then the next thing we're going to do is to make copies of this text node. And this is going to make a lot more sense later on. But for now, this is what we're gonna do is essentially make copies of this original text. So now it actually still looks like it's just one text, but we actually have three. And we're also gonna bring masking nodes as well. Now, the way this works is that the masking nodes is going to allow different part of the different texts to move in different directions, therefore giving the illusion that it's one single text being split up into different parts, and the different parts are moving in different direction. And so that's pretty much how it works. And masking allow us really to control, which portion of this text is going to be visible to us, and it's going to allow us to see it moving, to different parts of the video. So let's have a look at how this works. It's going to make a lot more sense now. So now we're gonna set up, as you can see, the first masking node and the second masking node. The first one focusing on the top portion of the text, and the second one focusing on more like the middle portion. And then our last masking node is gonna focus on the bottom portion of the text. And it's not gonna look perfect right away. So as you can see now, once we connect all the masking nodes to the text nodes, you're gonna see that there are actually gaps right now, right? In between the different parts of the text. And again, it's not gonna be perfect on the first try. So we can always come back to the masking nodes and make some small adjustment so that, we don't see this gap. And the idea is that, we're gonna make it look like almost as if there's nothing, right now, no masking, no, multiple copies of the same text at all. So as you can see, this looks just like the original text. Okay, now the next thing we're gonna do is come to the first text, and we're gonna come to location parameter and set up our keyframe to animate the effect. And the first keyframe, we're gonna move the top portion into out of the screen. So as you can see, this is actually just the first text, but we're only seeing the top portion because our masking allow us to only make the top portion of the first text visible to us. And okay, so then at the end here, the last keyframe, we're gonna bring this back. And then we're gonna move on to our second text, and it works pretty much the same. But as you can see now, this is going to only make us see the middle portion of the text. But this is actually the second text. But it looks like it's the middle portion of the original text being moved away, being moved around. And so that's pretty much the idea. And then we're gonna go to our last text, and which which we're only going to see the bottom portion of the text, and set up our keyframe. And then we're gonna just come back to our edit page, let it render, and then we're gonna have a quick look at the final effect. So as you can see, this is very much similar to what we saw earlier, and that's pretty much the idea of splitting up text in DaVinci Resolve. So now that we know how this works, we can get a bit more creative with this. Instead of making the text move horizontally, we can make them move vertically instead. Now, the setup process is very much the same. We're gonna make additional copy of the original text, and then we're also gonna bring our masking nodes as well. Now, the difference here is that the way we set up the masking nodes, instead of stacking them on top of each other, we're gonna line them up next to each other, side by side, instead. And then we're just gonna connect our masking nodes back to the text nodes. And then we're just gonna go ahead and go to our first text and move the first part of the first text down. And then we're gonna go to the second text and move the second part of the second text up. So now it will look like the original text is now being split into two parts and they're moving in different directions vertically. We can have more fun with this. So instead of making the text move either vertically or horizontally, we can actually make the text move in a diagonal direction. Now the setup process, once again, is very much the same. We're gonna make an additional copy of the text, and then we're gonna bring our masking nodes. But now the way we set up our masking nodes, instead of setting it up in those two directions, we're gonna set up our masking nodes in a diagonal line. So as you can see, it's now tilted, and we're just gonna make sure that we give it enough room so that the effect will work. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing for our second masking nodes. Once again, make sure that it's tilted, and this way it's gonna give us that effect that the text is now moving in a diagonal direction. All right, so once all that is done, then we're just gonna make sure that our masking nodes are connected back to our text nodes. Now, when we go to, we're just gonna make some small changes here, make sure it works better, it looks better. Okay, so now when we go to our first text, now the tricky thing here is that when we set up the animation, now instead of moving just the X parameter or the Y parameter, we need to actually set up both. So as you can see now, if we go ahead and set up, or just move, let's say the Y axis, now you will see that as we move it higher and higher, we're gonna start to see other parts of the text, of the original text. So this is gonna really ruin the effect. So what we want to make sure is that we also change the x-axis as well, so that it's, as you can see, it's moving in a tilted line, in a diagonal line, instead of a straight up and down or left and right. The second text works exactly the same, so we're gonna go ahead and set up our direction, make a set up our keyframe here, but instead of making it just straight down, we're gonna also move it to the left as well a little bit, so that it's in a diagonal line. And we're just gonna make some refinement here, make sure that it looks nice. So we're gonna just slowly replay this effect. So it's not looking clean as I was hoping. So we're just gonna come back here. Again, guys, this is not gonna be perfect in the first try, especially when you start to get a little bit more complicated with the effect. It would just take multiple attempts, multiple tries to get it right. Make sure that the effect looks clean. So, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I just want to make sure that the effect looks very clean. It looks like just one text being split into two parts. Okay, so that looks about right. We're gonna let it render, and then we're gonna go ahead and play the final effect. So this looks just like what we expected. So it will look like one text is now being split into two parts and they're moving in a diagonal line. So I hope this helps, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.